Some sounds you don't hear. You feel them. They stay with you. New Orleans, late afternoon. The air is heavy, the streets wet from a recent storm. Camille Duval stepped out of the cab and into the sticky heat of the French Quarter. The house loomed like a sleeping animal, old bones wrapped in ivy, shutters dangling loose as though they were eyelids fluttering before waking. Her sister's house. No, their house. The street was quiet in a way New Orleans rarely allowed. No jazz echoing from alleyways. No laughter from tourists. Just a distant thunder roll and the wet creak of her boots as she approached the gate. She paused at the iron gate, fishing through a bundle of keys the lawyer had mailed her. The lock clicked too easily, as if it had been waiting. The house was exactly as she remembered, yet smaller now. Peeling paint. A cracked window above the porch. The left shutter still bore the initials C+N, carved when she was 10 and Noelle was 13. Inside, the air was dry and stale, like dead paper. Camille flicked the light switch. Nothing. She sighed. Of course. She moved through the room slowly, recording everything on her phone habit. The foyer, the staircase, the record player still in the corner. Dust lay thick across everything except the couch cushions, where someone had recently sat. Later that evening, by candlelight, Camille sat at the dining table with her laptop. Her sister's voice, confused, frantic, filled her headphones. They told me not to listen, but I did. God, I heard it. I don't know what it is. Camille, if you get this, don't let the silence in. But the strangest part? When Camille ran the file through her audio software, it registered total silence after the first 10 seconds. No waveform, no noise floor, no residual background, as if the rest of the message had been erased by nothingness itself. Upstairs, Camille entered her old bedroom. The wallpaper had faded, the bed untouched since she left at 17. But Noelle's room across the hall was different. Clean, recently used. The scent of lavender still clung to the air. A journal lay open on the desk, her sister's neat script scattered across the page. She waits in the quiet. She lives in the quiet. A small reel-to-reel recorder sat beside it. Camille pressed play. Nothing. She leaned in, turned the volume up. Scree-cheek. A violent burst of static exploded through the speakers, making her jump and nearly drop the device. Then, silence. Except for a single faint whisper. Camille. She froze. As she turned toward the mirror above the dresser, she saw herself pale, shaken, but in the reflection. Her mouth was slightly open. Breathing. She wasn't. She snapped around. Empty room. No one behind her. Her reflection lagged by half a second. That night, Camille lay in the dark, unable to sleep. The fan clicked. Somewhere in the walls, pipes groaned. Then her phone buzzed beside her. One new voicemail. Unknown number. Timestamp. 2:13 a.m. She played it. Silence. And then, barely audible, her own voice whispering. Don't listen. Not every haunting begins with a scream. Some start with the absence of one. Early morning. Interior. Camille's bedroom. Camille awoke to find her phone on the floor beside her, its screen cracked and flickering. She didn't remember dropping it. She sat up, groggy, her ears ringing faintly with a frequency that didn't belong to any device. A low hum barely there, but constant. She turned on her laptop to review the voicemail from the night before, but the file was gone. No record of a call. No waveform in her software. Just a timestamp in the call log. 2:13 a. Exactly the time Noelle died. Exterior, street corner, neighbor's porch. The sun hung low through the mossy oaks. Camille crossed the street, drawn by the sight of an old woman sitting on a wooden porch. Madame Violette, a blind Creole woman who had lived in the neighborhood for as long as Camille could remember. Your sister's gone quiet, Violette said without greeting. I didn't tell you I was back. Didn't have to. The house did. Camille asked her what she meant. Violet chuckled bitterly. That house don't like silence, child. It listens. And when it listens long enough, it starts to remember. Violet warned her to leave before she started hearing things that didn't belong to her. Your family. Always meddling with things that shouldn't be recorded. Interior. Camille's house. Hallway. Basement entrance. Later, back inside, Camille followed the low hum through the house, her ears still aching faintly. The sound led her to a door she hadn't opened yet, the basement. The handle was cold and coated in dust. The door creaked open into a stairwell that descended into blackness. The hum grew louder. Each step down felt heavier, like the air itself was thickening. At the bottom, she found something strange. The basement was unfinished, but one corner had been fully sealed metallic walls, thick insulation, and a heavy vault-style door. It looked like a homemade anechoic chamber, a room built to block out sound completely. There was a placard on the outside. Duval Acoustic Lab, private property of James A. Duval, her father. Inside the soundproof room, there were decaying audio reels, sound wave diagrams, and a rusted mic stand. Her reflection stared back at her from a two-way mirror on the far wall. She stepped inside. As soon as she closed the door, the silence hit like a scream. Absolute, devouring. Then, a thump behind her. She turned. The door had shut. The lock clicked. Interior, inside the soundproof chamber. Panicking in the silence, Camille tried to open the door. It wouldn't budge. Her breathing grew sharp. She could hear her heartbeat echoing inside her skull. Then, a shift in the air. From the reflection in the mirror wall, she saw movement. A child-sized shadow stood behind her. No sound, no voice, just a shape. A void. She turned, but no one was there. She looked back at the mirror. The shadow was closer now. She banged on the glass, screamed, but no one could hear her, not even herself. Suddenly, the lock clicked again. The door creaked open. No one stood there. Just the hum again, rising, retreating. Camille fled. Back upstairs, her sister's bedroom. Camille found a small USB drive tucked beneath a floorboard in Noelle's room. Inside it, audio logs. I think the silence is alive, Noelle had said, voice shaky. It waits for you to make noise, ... then it learns you. Then it tries to become you. Camille rewound the file. On second playback, the voice was not Noelle's. It was Camille's, saying the same words. I think the silence is alive. She slammed the laptop shut. The room was empty, but the house felt awake. Not all echoes returned the same. Early morning, Camille's room, rain tapping on the windows. Camille hadn't slept. Her eyes were sunken, her fingers trembling slightly as she plugged her headphones into the recorder. She rewound the static-filled session she had captured during the previous night's white noise recording. At first, it was silence, then a soft pop, then layered voices, faint, childlike. She listened. She shouldn't have. Camille. Her breath caught. She amplified the file, filtered background frequencies, and beneath the layers found one clear voice. A child's, speaking directly into the mic. I told her not to listen. Now it's your turn. Interior, Camille's temporary audio setup in the dining room. Camille begins analyzing the strange waveform from the static. Its pattern isn't random. It pulses rhythmically, like a heartbeat. She runs a spectral frequency analysis and sees something impossible. A visual spectrogram in the shape of a face. Wide, dark eyes. A thin mouth. Distorted but undeniably human. Just as she stares in horror, the waveform flattens and her screen freezes. From behind her, a whisper, low and immediate, almost in her ear. You're in my house. She spins, no one there. The light bulb above her desk bursts. The attic, dusty, dim, heavy with old belongings. Hoping to find answers or distractions, Camille climbs into the attic. The floorboards groan beneath her. She finds boxes labeled with her father's initials. Inside, stacks of audio reels labeled Experiment Number 1 to 6. A family photo album with a torn-out page where a young Camille stands next to a girl she doesn't remember. A child's handmade bracelet, tagged Louisa. There's a tape recorder still loaded with an old reel. She presses play. At first, silence, then chanting. Then a man's voice, her father's urgently whispering. She doesn't want to be heard, but she must be. There's something beneath the silence. Then, screams. Camille jerks back. The tape melts in the player, as if overheated from within. That night, bathroom mirror scene. Later, Camille washes her face, exhausted. The mirror is fogged. As she wipes it clear, she sees her own reflection standing completely still. No blinking. No breathing. Then the reflection raises a finger, not mimicking her, and touches the glass from inside. Camille stumbles back. The reflection shatters into visual static like a VHS glitch and disappears. At the same moment, every faucet in the house turns on. Water pours, then stops. She's drenched, heart pounding. Her phone vibrates. New recording saved. She's watching. She hadn't pressed record. She plays it, heavy breathing. A voice whispering, "Don't wake her." Local Historical Society Records Office. Determined to learn who Louisa was, Camille visits the New Orleans archives. After bribing an exhausted clerk, she pulls up an 1890s census record. She finds it. Louisa Bellamy, age 9. Reported mute. Died during seance ritual, 1905. No burial location recorded. There's a photo of Louisa. She's the girl in the torn photo from Camille's attic. Camille's eyes widen. Why would her father have a photo of Louisa among their family pictures? A second, newer note attached to the file reads, "See Duval House Incident Report, -1976. Her father's name is on it. Before she can read further, the power in the building cuts out. In the dark, she hears someone walking slowly down the hall barefoot. They invited her in, but she never left. Evening, Camille's car and interior of the house. Rain streaked down the windshield as Camille pulled into the driveway, heart racing from the terrifying experience at the archives. The silence in the car was no longer comforting. It pressed in on her, thick and expectant. She sat for a moment, staring at the house. Something felt different. The windows no longer looked like glass. They looked like eyes. Inside, the air had grown colder. Not cool cold, as if the walls were exhaling. Camille locked the door behind her, instinctively, then noticed her voice recorder was still on. She hadn't pressed record. When she played it back, a phrase looped 4 times. "You're not alone. Basement, soundproof room." Driven by the name she found on the archival report. Experiment 6, Louisa. Camille returned to the basement. She brought gloves, a flashlight, and a hand-crank reel player to avoid electronic failure. She searched the shelves of labeled reels until she found it. EXP6. Subject, Louisa, March 5, 1976. She threaded the reel and sat alone in the soundproof room. Recorder rolling, breath shallow. The tape crackled to life. Male voice. Begin session. "Louisa, are you with us?" Silence. Then a soft moan. Not a child's. Something ... older. Another voice. Her voice will not come through in noise. We must mute ourselves. Then came 20 full seconds of dead silence on the tape. But Camille's body reacted. She felt pressure, a weight in the room. Her chest tightened. And then, from the tape, whispers overlapping dozens of voices. Not one. Not Louisa. She is many now. She is beneath. Let her out. Suddenly, the real player burst into flames. Camille jumped back, choking on the smoke. She extinguished it with a towel, only to realize her hands were bleeding from clenched fists, nails dug deep into her palms. She hadn't realized she'd done it. Camille's bedroom, post-seance tape. She stumbled upstairs, dazed and shaken, ready to call Ezra, her colleague and only friend outside New Orleans. But when she opened her phone, the time read 3:12 a.m. She had entered the basement at 11 p.m. She had no memory of the missing hours. Even worse, there was a new voice memo on her phone. Session 7. Success. Camille made contact. The voice was hers. Calm. Controlled. She didn't remember recording it. Phone conversation with Ezra. Audio call. Camille finally manages to call Ezra, who notices her voice sounds off. Hollow. Slower than usual. Camille begs him to analyze the original voicemail file she sent, the one with the whisper. There's something in the static, she tells him. Not distortion. It's shaped. Ezra promises to run it through spectral software. Before they hang up, he asks, "Who was the kid talking in the background just now?" Camille freezes. She was alone. Upstairs hallway. Outside Noelle's room. In the quiet aftermath, Camille notices something on the wall she hadn't seen before. A faint child's drawing, scratched into the plaster. A figure in a dress. Louisa? A house. A door in the floor. And beneath it, rows of faces with open mouths, but no sound lines. Camille's name, written backwards. She touched the wall. It felt warm. And behind her, a soft giggle. She turned. Nothing. Some spirits don't haunt a house. They haunt a bloodline. Morning. Interior. Camille's room. Camille woke to find red smudges on her sheets. At first, she thought it was blood, but on closer inspection, it was lipstick, smudged in the shape of a child's handprint. Beside her, her recorder was still running. She rewound the last 5 minutes. Camille, voice distorted. Don't listen. She's in me now. Her own voice again, but slurred, disembodied, like someone mimicking her. Like it wasn't her at all. She tried calling Ezra, but there was no signal. Violette's home Creole shotgun house, cluttered with charms, dried herbs, and altar candles. Desperate, Camille returned to Madame Violette, who had been avoiding her since the seance tape incident. The door was already open. Inside, dozens of voodoo grease bags swung gently from the ceiling, though the air was still. Madame Violette sat in the center of the room, eyes closed, surrounded by salt. She don't want you dead, Camille. Not yet. She wants you empty. Violette explained the real story. Louisa was not a malevolent spirit. She had been the conduit during a seance gone wrong, a child medium forced by spiritualists to channel a voice beyond the veil. What came through wasn't Louisa. It spoke through her, and now it's looking for a new voice, Camille. The silence is an absence. It's a space. Something waits there. Something old. Violet handed Camille a protective amulet and a vial of dark oil. You'll need this when you go to the bayou. Nightfall, dense swamp outside the city thick with fog, croaking frogs, and distant drumming. Camille follows a crude map Violet drew, leading her deep into the marsh where the original seance reportedly took place in 1905. The farther she goes, the more her flashlight flickers and malfunctions. She hears laughter, a child's voice, echoing through the trees. At a clearing, she finds an abandoned altar, candles long melted, bones arranged in a circle, and a broken tape recorder sitting at the center. When she plays it, her own voice is on it, saying, "This is where I met her." Suddenly, across the water, she sees a child figure watching from the fog, wearing a dress, holding something. She steps closer. The girl vanishes. Left behind, a music box playing the same melody Camille once used in her college film project, something only she would know. Return to the city. Madame Violette's home. Shaken, Camille returns to Violette's home, but finds the door ajar and candles melted into black wax puddles. Inside, silence. Too much silence. She finds Violette's body seated upright in her rocking chair, mouth gaping, ears blackened and leaking blood. Her eyes are sewn shut with red thread. A reel-to-reel tape plays on the floor, looping one word over and over in her own voice. Listen. Suddenly, the tape player catches fire and explodes, sending Camille stumbling backward. Camille's home, immediately following Violette's death. Camille returns home to find her house filled with static, not from speakers, but from the walls themselves. The floorboards vibrate subtly. She covers her ears. But the silence creeps in anyway, a sensory void that tightens around her mind. In her peripheral vision, she sees flickers like shadow people. One stares at her from the top of the stairs. She turns on every speaker in the house and plays overlapping tracks to keep the silence out. Her nose begins to bleed. She collapses. Just before blacking out, she hears a whisper. You're almost ready. The deeper the silence, the louder the lie. Camille's house, the living room, just before dawn. Camille wakes sprawled on the hardwood floor, covered in dried blood from her nose and ears. The last thing she remembers is collapsing as the house filled with pressure and static. Now, it's utterly still. No sound from the street. No birds. No wind. Only the dull click of her analog recorder beside her, still spinning. She presses stop and plays it back. There's a low drone, followed by a sound that doesn't belong in nature, like a reversed cry layered over electricity. Then, her own voice. She's inside. I let her in. Camille gasps. She doesn't remember saying that. Camille's bedroom, daytime. Camille locks every door, burns the protective oil Violette gave her, and begins packing to leave New Orleans. But as she opens drawers, she finds items she hasn't seen since childhood. Her father's lab coat. A broken cassette labeled Practice Session. Camille, age 9. A drawing of a house with a shadow in every window. But here's the problem. She doesn't remember drawing it, or ever being recorded. She plays the cassette on an old player. Her childhood voice speaks calmly. I can hear her through the silence now. She says I'll be like her. The voice pauses, then whispers. Daddy said not to tell Mommy. Phone call from Camille's friend Ezra. Ezra calls from L.A., his voice panicked. Camille, I decoded the waveform from the file. It's not noise. It's speech. Ancient dialect, something pre-colonial. But listen, he plays the cleaned audio over the line. A voice low, crackling speaks one phrase. I see through her. Suddenly, Ezra's voice cuts out. Static. Then, faintly. She's here too. The line goes dead. Camille tries to call back. No answer. She replays the last 5 seconds of the call. Her voice speaks. You weren't supposed to listen. Soundproof room in the basement. Camille returns to the soundproof room to confront whatever is within. She surrounds herself with mirrors and begins recording. She plays overlapping tapes from her father's sessions and Violette's chants. The room begins to shimmer. She speaks into the mic. Louisa, Eliza, who are you? A reflection answers, not her own. A small girl with bleeding ears and no mouth. Then, we were like you. We were heard. The air drops 20 degrees. The mirrors crack outward from the inside. Camille tries to flee, but can't move. Her voice becomes disembodied recording while she says nothing. Suddenly, silence. True silence. A presence stands behind her. Speak, and she takes your voice. Camille passes out. Interior, kitchen and hallway, later that evening. Camille now hears voices even when everything is unplugged. She sees herself standing across the hall, not moving. The second Camille is smiling. She records her. On playback, the smiling version says, "You're doing fine. You're almost ready." Terrified, Camille destroys the recorder. Then, a memory she doesn't own flashes in her mind. Her father, holding her down in the basement, a metronome ticking. "Be quiet. Don't wake her." She screams, but no sound escapes her lips. For the first time in her life, Camille cannot hear her own voice. The silence isn't empty. It's full of everything we tried to forget. Noelle's room. Night. Camille stands barefoot before the trapdoor, still in a trance from her silent scream. The fingernail scratches etched into the wood pulse like veins. With trembling hands, she pulls it open. A thin staircase descends into a hidden sub-basement that shouldn't exist. It smells of mildew, copper, and something older like dust trapped in time. On the wall, her father's handwriting scrawled in faded ink. She speaks when no one else can. Listen carefully. Then run. She descends into the darkness. Underground lab, deep beneath the house. Camille enters a room larger than the house should allow. An underground chamber lined with ancient brick and primitive insulation. It's a mix of old and new. Reel-to-reel machines. Voodoo markings and salt rings. Church pews arranged in a circle. Speakers positioned at equidistant points. A massive waveform etched into the stone floor. This was no ordinary lab. It was a ritual chamber built around sound. At the center lies an object wrapped in velvet cloth. Camille lifts it. A metronome, still ticking. She plays the last reel labeled. Experiment 7. Composite host. The audio contains a chant, not in English, not in Latin, followed by a dozen voices whispering Camille's name. They chant in rhythm with the metronome. She listens. She hears. She becomes. Camille is drawn into a trance half-conscious, fully immersed. As the chant continues, Camille begins to lose feeling in her body. The silence returns, but this time it's different, a resonant silence vibrating in her bones. She closes her eyes and wakes standing in a world of shifting shadows and distortion. A liminal soundscape. Echoes loop endlessly. Children weep in reverse. Static rains from the sky. Figures drift past, some half-formed, some human, some with no mouths or faces. They shudder like glitching film. In the center of it all, Louisa older now, hollow-eyed and barefoot on a floor of shattered cassette tapes. She speaks directly into Camille's mind. They made me do it. Then they made her. And now you. The shadows around her begin to fuse Eliza, Camille's father, Noel, versions of Camille herself. You're not haunted. You're built, Camille screams, but the world absorbs the sound. Within the spirit plane, Camille finds a giant floating waveform pulsing in the sky. Camille walks toward the waveform and realizes it's not just sound, it's memory. Each pulse contains her childhood recordings. Noel's last screams, Louisa's silent sobbing, her father's confession. She sees them overlapping, like music tracks in a digital audio workstation. The waveform is dissonant, broken. She instinctively reaches toward it, layering all the sounds together into one. A final phrase plays. You are the conductor now. The waveform stabilizes for a moment, then pulses once, violently blasting Camille back into her body. The sub-basement, now dead silent. Camille awakens on the floor of the ritual room. Blood trickles from her ears. Her voice is gone. Every machine is still. The metronome is broken, but she is calm. She rises and looks in the cracked mirror on the wall. Her reflection smiles a beat too late. She speaks. Her voice is layered multiple voices inside one. I hear everything now. She walks back upstairs, and the silence follows her. When the voice is taken, the body remembers the scream. Morning, the Duval home, post-transformation. Camille walks back up from the sub-basement in complete silence. No footsteps echo. The creaking floors do not respond to her weight. She passes through the house like a shadow. The mirrors don't reflect her right away. The clocks tick out of sync. A low, ghostly tone resonates from the walls. Not a sound, but a pressure. It follows her. Outside, the French Quarter bustles with life. Tourists laugh, jazz bands play, children run. But inside the house, dead silence. Camille sits at the dining table and opens her laptop. On the screen, dozens of new audio files have generated themselves, each one labeled with dates before she was born. She plays one. It's her voice from childhood, telling a story about a shadow girl who lived in the walls. Her breath hitches. She doesn't remember this. She isn't sure she's Camille anymore. The ritual room midday? Camille returns to the underground chamber one last time. This time, she doesn't bring recording equipment. She brings silence. She places Noelle's journal in the center of the waveform on the floor, along with the metronome, Louise's bracelet, a cassette labeled Final Session. Then she speaks out loud for the first time since her transformation. Her voice is layered deeper, a chorus. You wanted a conductor. I'll give you a song. She sits in the center of the circle, closes her eyes, and begins to hum. It's the same lullaby that played from the music box in the bayou. Only now, it sounds full, complete. The machines around her power on without being touched. The silence begins to vibrate. The waveform etched in the floor pulses. Figures appear around her: Louisa, Eliza, Noelle, even her father. They are not whole. They are echoes, looping memories. They watch her. You're free now, Camille says softly. But I stay. The waveform peaks. Everything goes white. 1 week later, exterior, a real estate agent outside the Duval house. A perky real estate agent stands on the porch, preparing for a showing. Historic French Quarter beauty. Recently vacated, perfect for content creators or artists. Inside, the house is eerily pristine. The basement door has been sealed with fresh drywall. No signs of decay, no dust. She walks through, talking to potential buyers. It's completely silent in here. Weird, right? Like unnaturally quiet. Great for podcasting. She opens a closet door. Inside, a cassette deck recorder with a blinking red light. That wasn't here before, she mumbles. Curious, she presses play. It's a voice, Camille's voice. If you hear this, don't speak. Just leave. Please, don't break the silence. The tape ends. Silence. Then, a whisper behind her ear. Found you. Cut to the old cassette tape Camille labeled Final Session. It plays silently, but beneath the noise floor, the waveform pulses like a heartbeat. Dead silence. But the screen slowly fades to black over one last whisper. We're still listening.